Edwin Smith, they named it after the guy that bought it, but the so-called Edwin Smith surgical papyrus, more than 3,600 years old. And okay, so there's trauma to the brain. There's no doubt. That's the oldest surgical document in the world, and it deals with broken bones, injuries, and how to treat that. But that's not connected to all of the things that some writers are attempting to do. Is this syndrome or that syndrome? This person got knocked in the head, so it must be post-traumatic stress. Based on what? These are people that don't even read the text. So they're looking at a translation of a translation of a translation and giving some kind of diagnosis that was created thousands of years later. So it's not. So it is not science. As we go back, because science, it comes from the Latin word "scire," which means to know, and they don't know. It's simply guesswork that is superimposed on past cultures and wars.
So how do we fix it? Are there any solutions that we can do to fix the misinformation and the miseducation? Because this seems like that's really what's going on with those who are in the academia field, psychiatrists, and not saying, let me ask this before I go there. Are there any good psychiatrists?
Yeah, but I think so.
Yeah.
But I would say they are not practicing psychiatry.
Okay.
Yeah, they have moved on.
They don't do that.
In fact, in the video, The World of Psychiatry, there were a number of psychiatrists who were totally against.
Oh, you're talking about the Psychiatry and Industry of Death documentary.
Yeah. There were a lot. There were a number of
alone.
psychiatrists who were dead set against what they were doing in the
Exactly.
military, and so there are good ones out there. The only thing is that when you find people like that, they get usually weeded out and be labeled as somebody who's nuts or don't know what they're talking about.
Okay.
Well,
Go ahead,
Dr.
please.
Thomas Oz,
Yeah.
Dr. Thomas Oz, who's the co-founder of Citizens Commission on Human Rights, that made this documentary and some that we're talking about, that are all award-winning documentaries. But Dr. Thomas Oz was a psychiatrist who never prescribed a psychiatric drug to anybody. And he was a watchdog in the field and a critic of psychiatry, and because of psychiatry attempt to control people. And he said, one of the things he said was, we don't have an epidemic of mental illness. We have an epidemic of psychiatry.
Wow.
That's what he said.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and because he's actually dealing from a spiritual perspective.
That's right.
As
He said
opposed.
people are being
And
drugged
we, and we do
controlled.
have some good psychiatrists. We have one sitting here beside
I'm a
us. So-
psychologist. Psychologist, like you.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Right. Okay. So that brings me to the next question. What are we going to do to fix the problem, not just only in the schools, but in the homes? Because if most people are buying the information that comes through their idiot box, I call it, the TV, that there's a problem if you are too fat. We talked about this before, that there's a mental disorder, mental disease. How do you fix that problem? How do you get millions of people to shut down their conditions or the conditioning?
We're doing it, like Professor Ampim said. We have to keep doing programs like this, getting information out. Everybody who is listening and who this rings true for, welcome. You now have a responsibility too, and I hope you embrace that responsibility and pass that on and tell others, because it is going to be through our talking to other people, them talking to other people, raising awareness, stopping being consumers of this. The drug company is not going to stop. The Psychiatric Association is not going to stop. In fact, they're just going to shift to something else. And I want people to be forewarned, because the history of psychiatry is one experiment that's damaging. And as soon as people catch on to that, like, oh, lobotomies are not so good.
I mean,
maybe.
but you say
Then
catch on, it's been what, 1880, but 80,
Yeah.
83?
But
So they do
you
How
have to
much
ask
time
yourself,
do you need to catch on?
You have to
Right.
ask yourself, what is the average John
look at
Doe
us now.
citizen looking at? They're not paying attention to this kind of stuff. The only time that they get
And that's that's the biggest problem right
the
there.
only time they get information is when they have to actually come in contact with these people. You take, like, I work with families. So I seize that opportunity, based on the interaction and what kind of relationship, as to whether I want to step across that line and say, okay, here's the root of your problem.
Let me ask you, do you think most of the people are aware of what's going on, or do they care? Do we care?
I think people.
Do you think the American people care about what's going on here? And it's a global problem, because this is not just here in America, but do we
I think
actually
if
care
you're
what's going
doing
on?
well, you don't care. If your life is what you think it ought to be, you don't care. But if you ask the average person out there who's struggling every day, do they care? But a lot of them may care, but they don't know all of the intricacies of this situation.
Okay, more and more people, I think, are becoming aware. I really do think that. More and more people are aware of the damage of psychiatric drugs. More and more people have had experience with that. 1 in 4 Americans is on a psychiatric drug right now. More people have known somebody who's committed suicide, on a psychiatric drug, or had, whatever other damage. So I do think that's happening. And that's why I'm saying I want to put a warning out there, because the psychiatric industry knows that that's happening too, and that people are starting to, they know that people are starting to catch on and turn against, they do. They're writing about it. They write about it in their, on the Psychiatric Times. Okay. That they have these critics now of psychiatry.
So you're in agreement, Dr.
The American Psychiatric Association has been, I have an article here, APA targets unnecessary antipsychotic use. That is the overuse of it. It's over prescription of these things. I don't take any drugs. I never have, because I've been just aware that you should be, as much as possible, natural, and look at how your relationships. Because when somebody has bad relations, they say, "Oh, that person makes me sick." When they say that, so that's why in tradition, me studying African culture helps a lot, because how do you treat an individual outside of also looking at that family environment that the person lives in? You have to look at the entire family. You can't just be in a relationship by yourself. So it's looking at everybody that person is interacting with, their relationships, their diet, as my colleagues have said. So this has to be looked at. More people are aware, but there's more money being put into this this misinformation as well. So we have to really be aware that a pill is not, it's the American culture. You take a pill and everything's solved. This kind of nonsense. It will never be that way. And when people see infomercials that this drug or that drug, it's supposed to deal with this or that issue, but they call it it's not side effects. This is the destruction of central organs in many cases. This is not side effects, but it's central damaging effects that have an indelible and lasting impact. And it's amazing the kind of disclaimers that are now having to be, well, and this might cause a stroke, it might cause a heart attack, it might cause death. If you know anybody,
And you asked the question, will people ever catch on? Well, I ask you this question. Will there ever, beside these infomercials, will there ever be a time when there's an alternative? Do not take this medication. You understand? So what you're looking at, so it has to come from programs like this. It has to come from individuals who decide that I'm not going to participate in this process anymore, and start to try and educate the community at whatever level. I'm not saying you're going to have an audience of 100 or 200 people. Every time I see a family, it's an opportunity for me to spread some information out there. And if you do that, then usually if these people have a good outcome, guess what? Word of mouth is better than that media. They'll tell their friends, because I've had families that I've worked with, next thing I know, they're referring their sisters and aunts and uncles to me.
Well, okay. You wanted to say, Doctor?
Oh, well, just, like I do think, more people are getting aware. I do think the psychiatric industry knows that, and they are now starting to position themselves as like, oh yeah, there's some over-medicating, like, those doctors shouldn't do that. But the thing that I want us to get one step ahead of this time as a culture, instead of falling for, is what's on the horizon. What are they going to come up with next? So before, it's like the lobotomies, ECT, drugs. Each new thing they come up with, we believe them. They say oh, now we have this new science and we have this thing. And then everybody just says, oh, great, okay, I'll try that. The next thing coming up, and you will start hearing about this, and I want people to be warned now, you're going to be hearing about deep brain stimulation. Like electrical stuff. You're going to be hearing about electrical implants in the brain. They're already doing this. Electrical implants, so they can fire a little electrical thing, give you a little mini electric. They already are working on, for veterans, false memory implanting. Take somebody who's had a traumatic memory, you replace it, you implant a false memory. It's not hard to do, actually. False memories can be implanted.
It kind of reminds you of the Manchurian candidate.
That's right, Manchurian candidate. So I want this out there now. I want people to know, so that when you see a commercial for deep brain stimulation, or oh, the wonders of this, the next miracle breakthrough, science, we finally have the scientific breakthrough in psychiatry. It's like, no, No.
Right, and
Like,
it kind
don't
of,
fall for the next one and,
Right,
and wait
right.
until there's a generation of children that are destroyed by
destroyed,
the.
yeah.
right, there was a movie that came out, I want to say in 2004 or 5 called Equilibrium. If you haven't seen that movie, and it's all about people controlling one's feelings. And once you are able to control the feelings, as a matter of fact, you can't have any feelings because then you are eliminated. So this is part of what is going on, I think, with the American people or in this industry of APA.
Well, no
that we-
doubt. And in fact, Dr. Lagemann has really touched on another. So this is generally what's happening in the population, but if you look at people of color, particularly African Americans, it's even more than the regular population. You have the over prescription of these kind of drugs. You have it being worse in these situations, these settings, and parents don't always know, and then people in the public school system, they don't know. I take the time every semester. I'm teaching history, but that's okay. We still talk about it because when someone is sick, then that gives me a chance to talk about health.
Yeah, good.
Right.
To talk
right,
about health
right.
and what
That's right.
and not just physical health, but being balanced.
And
Yeah,
we
good.
really have to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
careful,
I like that.
especially with African Americans, because of the melanin and the way that our body retains
And, right.
things in the body. It may be even more detrimental to African Americans.
And Dr. Kwedu is correct. The studies have been done about that. Dr. Carol Barnes out of Houston, he did research on how some of these drugs combine with the melanin molecules, and so it makes people more dependent. And you know,
Well,
clinical.
we have a lot of
yeah,
work to do.
yeah.
We have a lot of work
Oh,
to
yeah.
do. Well, we're at the end of our show, and I want to thank all of you for coming in once again, and I appreciate your time, your knowledge, your wisdom, and for sharing with the audience as well as the public. And hopefully we can come back again and do this once again. I am your host, Kinara Sankofa, and if you're interested in seeing any of this material, you can tune into your YouTube. That's www.youtube, and type in either mental disorder in the world of psychiatry or anyone's name, Dr. Kwedu, Dr. Linda, or Professor Manu, and or myself. And thank you once again. Good night.